I am Sanaullah MIR. I teach philosophy at AMU Aligarh. The meaningfulness of human existence through knowledge and faith, the Risale-i perspective. In this paper, I have tried to bring out that human existence as such can be interpreted in plural ways, and there are various disciplines or even faculties who take stand this way or that way. So there are philosophers, there are scientists, there are social scientists, there are historians, there are theologians, and there are scholars who have something to say on the meaning and significance, meaningfulness and significance of human existence. Approaches can be either rational, or it can be predominantly spiritual, or it can be predominantly rational, or it can be purely experimental and positivistic, etc. So there are various approaches available to interpret human existence. But human existence as such cannot be necessarily bracketed within a single perspective. That you cannot absolutely have a demonstration as to what is the ultimate goal of human life, what is the ultimate ideal of human life. There is no necessary demonstrative or experimental or rational proof as to which ideal or which system of ideals or which system of values should be accepted to be governing or controlling human life or human existence as such. There are opinions and there are interpretations and there are reasons and there are strategies of interpretation and there are worldviews and there are value systems and there are theologies and there are philosophies, etc. But we just cannot mathematically and logically prove that this value system and this ideal or this system of values is the value system which ought to guide and control and determine human existence, so that we could easily and conveniently demonstrate as to what is the purposefulness and what is the meaningfulness and what is the value of human existence and in which direction human civilization ought to proceed, etc. The Western perspective mostly, especially Greek perspective, by the time of Western Renaissance, the Greek philosophy and the Greek vision and the Greek mission and the Greek principles and the Greek logic and the Greek methodology was reappropriated, etc. So modern philosophers, especially since Descartes, up to Kant and even many more after Kant, have appropriated the classical Greek vision, in which not necessarily an eschatological realm or a realm of afterlife was not necessarily postulated to be providing meaningfulness and significance to human existence. Rather, rational, logical investigation or methodology was deemed to be sufficient, explaining the significance of human life. That's human significance and meaningfulness of human life was deemed to be sufficiently explainable within the framework or within the paradigm of rationality, etc. But after enlightenment in the 18th century, especially after Kant, there was a very, very large and major critique of rational philosophy itself, or the limits of rationality themselves, as to how far human rationality or human reason, etc., human arguments or human philosophical acumen or human scientific and experimental research, how far it can go to provide any kind of purposefulness or meaningfulness to human existence, how far it can explain human existence, etc. There was a major critique within the West, and post-Kantian philosophy has been deeply, deeply critical. Most of the important philosophers of West after Kant have been deeply, deeply critical about the role of reason or about the capacity of reason to provide us any kind of any sense of meaningfulness or any sense of purposefulness to human existence or human life. So whereas the religious perspective or theological perspective or Islamic perspective or even Christian perspective, whatever you say, has not been appropriated by the modern, by the postmodern mind, by the contemporary West. But the classical rational assumptions have been critiqued within Western philosophy itself. And therefore, we have a situation where religion or theology as such, classical religious or theological worldview or value system has not been necessarily appropriated by modern West or by Risale-i through Risale-i has obviously appropriated a theological, a religious, a spiritual, and a mystical approach. Obviously, this approach has been deeply critical all along, even before Greeks, even after Greeks, even the modernist philosophers have faced the brunt of the criticism that has been launched by theological and mystical scholars or intellectuals. And Noor sees critique of rationality or reason as such, not necessarily, he is not demolishing reason or he is not rejecting reason, but he is in his own way showing the limitations or limits of human rationality and human reasoning as such, and appropriating, of course, a mystical, religious and spiritual worldview with which we may or may not agree. That's a different thing. Here I shall just summarize some of the paragraphs, some of the lines showing that how Western, how Western scholarship or how Western intellectuals have themselves critiqued reason. So partly they have agreed with the vision and mission advanced by intuitionists or spiritualists or mystics of all ages, all times and climes. And partly positively they have not appropriated either Christian worldview or Islamic worldview. That's a different question. But the approach that was dominantly advanced by Western intellectuals and philosophers has been somehow disowned, and it has been accepted that we have serious rational and intellectual approach to human existence is severely limited, and we cannot fully have an interpretation or an explanation which can somehow or the other, by recourse to values, by recourse to ideals, by recourse to certain missions, by recourse to certain visions, etc., impart some kind of purposefulness or meaningfulness to human existence. The classical, medieval and modern philosophers have, despite radical differences, advanced substantive unto cosmological, axiological and epistemological theories. They have formulated nothing less than systems of philosophy. These philosophical systems were subjected to critical appraisals and rebuttals. Even in ancient times, there were sophists and there were Charvakas in India who provided a radical critique of these systems of belief and visions and values, etc. Even in contemporary modern philosophy, Western philosophy, you have Hume and Kant and Schopenhauer and Kierkegaard and Marx and Nietzsche, etc., who have assembled such exceptionally strong critiques of philosophy that presently we have been flooded by negativistic accounts of metaphysics, theology and ethics. Contemporary hyper-radical linguistic analysis and deconstructive strategies have attempted to toss these unto cosmological, axiological and epistemological theories out of the realm of meaningfulness. Postmodernists are radically opposed to classical, medieval and modern notions of truth, value, reality, meaning, reason and explanation. Feminists see philosophy and theology as rooted in patriarchal social order, fostering subordination and oppression, exploitation, disempowerment of women. Hermeneutists find all of propositions nothing more than interpretations and prescriptions. Biocentric technology is increasingly undermining the most cherished claims of theocentric ontology. Philosophers of science are deeming the truth of all objective and universal laws of science to be paradigm-bound. All theories are pronounced to be meaningless, groundless, and justificationless. Our beliefs, values, purposes, methods, and approaches are deemed to be rooted in our inextricable predilections and presuppositions, themselves traceable to equally unwarranted assumptions ad infinitum. Thus, contemporary modes of doing philosophy constitute a fully fledged turn around and a paradigm shift. Contemporary critique of philosophy has emanated against the backdrop of the positivistic methodology and secular scientific paradigm of modern Europe, in contradistinction to the revelatory mystical paradigm of philosophy advanced by classical Asian prophets, and seers which till date continues to constitute an abiding alternative to Western critical response, such as epistemological skepticism, metaphysical agnosticism, and ethical nihilism. The place of reason in religion has always been deeply and widely controversial. Most of the religions are anchored or grounded on faith, devotion, prayers, rituals, practices, surrender to God, love of God, or pantheistic attunement to all that exists. Religions as worldviews, value systems, or ways of life are fundamentally rooted in faith in the divinity of a scripture or divinity and authority of an individual, such as Lao Tzu, Confucius, Buddha, Mahavir, Christ, etc. Philosophers flaunting the standard of reason, both as a source of knowledge and criterion of justification, have not been in accord with the worldviews and value systems advanced by religions on grounds of faith or authority. They have questioned the rationale of religions or rational credentials of religions. Religions can be shown to be rational, however they cannot be rationalistically explained. Religions can be shown to be rational, but they cannot be rationalistically explained. Religious beliefs and values cannot be shown to be logical inferences, inductive generalizations, or deductive conclusions. They cannot be subjected either to logico-mathematical validation or empirical verification. They are also impervious to historical investigation, statistical treatment, or field survey, etc. There are no clinching reasons or conclusive arguments for the truth of religious beliefs and values. So a rational justification of religion seems to be a rationalistic justification of religion seems to be impossible of formulation or attainment. However, it should not mean that religious worldviews and value systems are not rational insofar as rationality of a human action, engagement, or institution consists in its purposefulness and or goal-orientedness. Now, religions cannot be said to be purposeless or aimless ventures or enterprises of mankind since time is immemorial. They cannot be said to be catering to immediate pleasures or interests of man. However, they can be said to be catering to long-term interests of man or humanity at large. Religions have not bothered for their rational justification, for they have been too engaged in furnishing moral, spiritual, and ontological justification for man, as well as justification of human morality, spirituality, and purposefulness. Religions aim at education, edification, transformation of man through attunement to their respective worldviews and value systems. The justification of religion may be said to be moral edification and spiritual transformation of man. Human moral and spiritual concerns may themselves be said to be constituting the justification of religion. Anybody is free to question the transcendental and eschatological preoccupations of man. Even spiritual and moral justifiability of religion can be easily questioned by naturalists, mechanists, or hedonists. A religion is rational to the extent it imparts beliefs and values to man and imparts meaning and purpose to human existence. The proponents or exponents of scientism are fully free to doubt the truth of religion. If rationalists are entitled to question the truth of religions, so are religions perfectly within their rights to question the so-called capacity of reason to furnish us metaphysical or scientific truths. Contemporary philosophical assessments of reason are vortexed into imperatives of pleasure and, you see,
15 minutes already gone.
15 minutes already gone. Okay, sir.
I'm going very fast, brother.
Okay, sir. Reason is a dialectical and can only generate paradoxes, contradictions, and disagreements. Reason can never furnish us necessary and universal truths. The necessity that's underlined as the characterizing feature of reason in rationalist epistemological framework is at best tautologically irrelevant. Reason operates within conventional rules and criteria. The so-called universal reason, under the impact of numerous intangibles and imponderables, simultaneously germinates and justifies incommensurable life worlds and forms of life. man's quest, especially rationalists in Western intellectuals, have by and large launched a very powerful critique of religion because they deemed that religion is not rationally or rationalistically justifiable. Within the Western philosophy, after Kant, there emerged Badiüzzaman Nursi and many more, Allama Iqbal, and we can count many more. Within India, within Indian religious tradition, Asian religious tradition, Japanese religious tradition, or even Chinese religious tradition, the mystics, the Asian prophets, the Asian seers, and the Asian, intellectuals, insofar as they espouse and underline the power of intuition and the power of, faith and the power of intuition, of spirituality, of, commitment, of emphasis on ethical values or value dimensionality of man, as against purely radical rationalism advanced by classical Greeks and modern Western philosophers. Thank you.